Thank you. This may be the most important speech I've ever made. I want to provide an update on our ongoing efforts to expose the tremendous voter fraud and irregularities which took place during the ridiculously long November 3rd elections. We used to have what was called Election Day. Now we have election days, weeks and months, and lots of bad things happened during this ridiculous period of time, especially when you have to prove almost nothing to exercise our greatest privilege, the right to vote. As president, I have no higher duty than to defend the laws and the Constitution of the United States. That is why I am determined to protect our election system, which is now under coordinated assault and siege. For months leading up to the presidential election, we were warned that we should not declare a premature victory. We were told repeatedly that it would take weeks, if not months, to determine the winner, to count the absentee ballots, and to verify the results. My opponent was told to stay away from the election. Don't campaign. We don't need you. We've got it. This election is done. In fact, they were acting like they already knew what the outcome was going to be. They had it covered, and perhaps they did, very sadly for our country. It was all very, very strange. Within days after the election, we witnessed an orchestrated effort to anoint a winner, even while many key states were still being counted. The constitutional process must be allowed to continue. We are going to defend the honesty of the vote by ensuring that every legal ballot is counted and that no illegal ballot is counted. This is not just about honoring the votes of 74 million Americans who voted for me. It's about ensuring that Americans can have faith in this election and in all future elections.
The president has said that he believes all legal votes should be counted and all illegal votes should not be counted. And in fact, the campaign is pursuing that litigation. I can't get into the details of that litigation here, but they still do have active cases in Nevada and Wisconsin.
Because I know you're here because you love America. I know you're here because you love Donald Trump and he loves you. You're here because we, the people, will not let them steal our vote. We will not let them steal our freedom. Every lie will be revealed. And on January the 20th of 2021, Donald J. Trump will be sworn in as President of the United States of America.
We're going to fight for this country, and we're going to hold the line like America has held the line in every war we've ever been in. Georgia is the battleground state. It's Georgia. Hold the line. 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 Peace out, America.
Vernon Jones.
This is Jack Maxey sitting in the captain's seat here on Capitol Hill. War Room, episode 556. Hold the line. That's what we're talking about, people. You think anybody's afraid? We're not afraid. We're just getting started. The America's like a big beast. You got to kick it awake, but once it's awake, you better get out of its way. It's like finding a bear in his cave in the winter. You better not be the one who woke him up. Well, this is what's happening out here, America, and it's a beautiful thing for me to see. One of the things I had to say about Sydney and Lynn Wood's rally or press conference, however they want to describe it, we've been talking a lot about how this is a fourth turning, about how there's a kind of great awakening occurring in this country, and we see it across this land as people of all races, all income brackets, all whatever, get together and realize that there's been a great grift, the finesse, as Tariq says. But here's the thing. They got to get it past us now, and we're all awake. And it's important right now at this moment in history I think we're looking at a great awakening. I think we're looking at that fourth turning. And to get back to my point, I think there was almost like a Southern prayer revival going on inside that tent. A great appeal to God, which I think is totally appropriate. I think throughout our history, we've always had the Great Spirit has been on our side in difficult times. And in that case, we're very honored right now to have Michael Walsh on, a fabulous historian. And I guess I'm going to have to put Michael on the spot and ask him, Michael, are we at that point where we have to hold the line? Is this it? Is this our version of Thermopylae as a republic?
It is, Jack. I'm glad you mentioned Thermopylae because that's where the origin of hold the line actually comes from. It comes from the Greek phalanxes and, more importantly, the Roman legions. And the idea was once the enemy broke through your front line, your center collapsed. And as Yeats famously said in his poem, the center cannot hold. And your troops disperse and you've lost the battle. So the one thing you must do is always hold that line.
Well, that's good advice, and that's the advice we're getting from everywhere across this country. I will say, I don't know what the fans think about this, but Vish and I were watching it earlier, and Steve texted in from the road. Vish, what's it like? Vish, what was the answer?
I told him it was like having a bunch of Jack Maxey's on stage.
What was Steve's response to that?
Sounds like victory.
That's right, people. All together, they can't stop us. That's why I got a smile on my face, because one way or the other, the evil that we're seeing out there is getting exposed moment by moment. And let's not be afraid to start calling some of these things what they are. Lying, cheating, stealing, these are evil habits of evil people, and they need to be opposed by all of us. Michael, back to you. Sorry for the interruption, pal.
No, it's very pertinent right now to what we're going to talk about, I hope, Jack, which is my new book called Last Stands, which is a history of last stands from the Greeks to the present. It's a call for the restoration of traditional masculinity, toxic masculinity, if you want to call it that. And it's a call to arms to say that at every great battle, and we have been having this battle with the left for a good 50, 60 years and more in this country, there comes a point where you have to fight. Because if you don't fight, you can't win. If you fight, you could lose. But if you run and break and don't hold that line, you will lose. So the morals of these stories from the Greeks and the Romans at Cannae, where they did lose but came back to win the war, from Custer at the Little Bighorn, from General Gordon facing the Mahdi at Khartoum, to the Soviet troops at Stalingrad when they were almost overwhelmed by the German army and yet hung on and hung in and finally defeated and ended Hitler's dreams of conquest. We have to seemingly learn these ideas every few generations, and this seems to be one of them.
Well, I've said many times that I always say the first lines of the American Revolution were really Captain John Parker of militia, where he said, stand your ground, do not fire unless fire upon. But if they mean to have a war, let it begin here. Now, I'm not advocating a war here, Media Matters, but what I am saying is we have a proud heritage. And why should we back down? Imagine that this was a court of law. Imagine that President Trump's life was on the line. And reality is the life of this republic is on the line. We are the jury here, and we demand to see the evidence of the guilt or innocence of the two men in the docket. It's that simple, and it's worth fighting for. Michael?
Well, I'm glad the president did this. 2 weeks ago in the Epic Times, in my Epic Times column, I said, Mr. President, address the nation. Tell the country what is at stake constitutionally here. The left is in, as the president pointed out a few minutes ago, an unseemly rush to get this over with, because as usual, they figure count the votes until we win, then stop counting, shut up, and go away. We saw them do this in Washington State with the governor's race a few years back. It happens in the state of Connecticut all the time, where they wait to see how many votes they need to steal, and then they steal them in the middle of the night. None of this should have come to anybody, and in fact, I've been warning about it, at least for the last month, about the parlous state of the election security in this country. Well, now here it is. and now they want this election to be over. But the Constitution prescribes very carefully what the steps are, and we still have to wait for the Electoral College. We still have to wait to see if the legislatures, which electors they're sending to the Electoral College, and if Biden doesn't get to 270 or if Trump doesn't get to 270, the prescription is very clear. It goes to the House of Representatives, and in that case, the president will win 26 to 23, and that's the end of the story. So they don't want it to go that far for obvious reasons. But we have to insist, as the president just did, on constitutional remedies for confused elections. Look, we've had them before. We had them in 1800. We had them in 1824. We had them in 1876. We had one in 2000. The Republic will survive this, but only if we stick to our foundational document, and that's the Constitution, and only if we hold the line, which is right now.
Amen. And I appreciate you bring back that the Constitution will withstand it. I keep telling people that this is not, although we are in a crisis, it is not a crisis that the Constitution cannot withstand. It's designed exactly for this. Our founders gave us a way to get around these sorts of problems. They envisioned a time when we might have elections that might not work out the way that they should have. They recognize that people are imperfect. It's actually one of the great flaws, I think, always of the left, that they think that rules can create a perfected person, whereas rules are necessarily because people are by nature imperfect, and that's the only reason.
Well, that's exactly right, Jack. I've also written 2 other books on this very subject, which is conservatives and the right, however you want to put it, understand the human animal is flawed. That is the history of our culture from time immemorial. The left, the neo-Marxists, believe that man is perfectible, and they've tried to do it over and over again. They tried it in the Soviet Union to build the new Soviet man. They tried it in Cambodia. They've tried it in China. They're trying it here now in their own inimical way. But history proves that man is not perfectible, and that we must understand the real nature of the human animal. And the human animal likes to fight. Men like to fight, and we fight for very good reasons sometimes, and we have to respect that.
And let's hope that it does not get to that, but the Constitution leaves even room for that, shall we say. But I would like to say we're going to come back here in about a minute, because I really want to dig down into your book, because I think it has lessons for the world right now which are important. That there are things on this planet, there are things that are worth dying for, there are things that are worth standing your ground for, that are beyond ourselves. This is the history of mankind until very recently. And we watched today with this nihilistic culture here where we chase, more Instagram fans or things like that rather than focusing on our souls. And we watch our elected leaders take oaths that we don't believe that they actually have any feeling for. It's one of the reasons why even the enlightened philosophers said you shouldn't allow somebody who was a non-believer to vote in court, right? They've got no payment. We've got to get back to our spiritual core values. Michael's book is very much about spiritual things, and we're going to return in just about 30 seconds. People, thank you so much for sticking with us. Stay in the fight. This is not over by a long shot.
We're taking down the CCP, the world all through Hong Kong. We will fight till they're all gone. We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room. It's Jack Maxey here with my co-host Greg Mann. Steve Bannon is on special assignment. And we've got Michael Walsh here. I get a little carried away. I guess my heart just thumps a little bit harder after I go to a prayer meeting down in Georgia where I see patriotic people getting wound up for their Constitution and defense of their rights. But Michael's written a great book called Last Stands, and it's about those kinds of things that are as important in this life, and they transcend time and space. And I got a chance to read through a good portion of it the other night, and I can tell you it's something that you should put on every man's bedside table that you know, and every woman too, but particularly for all young men and women to read, to understand where they come from. So, Michael, I hope you can tell us a little bit about your book and hopefully inspire our audience, not that they need it.
Well, thank you for those kind words, Jack. In fact, I'll start with the dedication. I dedicated this book to my 2 daughters and my 2 granddaughters with the inscription so that they can understand where they came from, because my father, their grandfather and great-grandfather, 94 years old right now, today, not today, but now, is a veteran of the Korean War. In fact, he's a veteran of the Chosin Reservoir. And the picture of the Marines fighting down at the bottom half of the cover of Last Stands there is a Marine unit in Korea. He was awarded a Bronze Star for heroism at the Chosin Reservoir, one of the great battles in Marine Corps history, and one of the great last stands in Marine Corps history, with a happy ending that many of the Marines came out of it alive, including him. So I wanted my offspring to know the sacrifice that their grandfather and great-grandfather had made. By extension, everybody who reads this book, everyone who's comes from a military family, as I do, who's got military in their own background, these are the real American patriots. These are the people who put their lives on the line. They're not just sitting in a little office in New York typing and writing op-eds and taking pot shots without any skin in the game whatsoever. So in the first chapter of this book, which is really the philosophical essence of it, it's called To Die For. And the question is there anything worth dying? Our culture today teaches us that nothing is worth dying. It's okay to kill your unborn children. That's fine. They are expendable. But and that's feminism at its most malevolent. But what do we sacrifice ourselves for? The attitude is only a chump would sacrifice himself. And of course, that anti-historical and anti-human attitude, anti-humanistic attitude, is exactly the wrong attitude to have in a time of great crisis. As the philosopher Kant said, and I won't get too philosophical here, but he said, the natural state of man is not peace, it's war. And the old Roman sayings, si vis pacem para bellum, if you seek peace, prepare for war, has never been truer. Now, whether it's an actual shooting war or whether it's this cold civil war, as I dubbed it about 10 years ago, is what we're engaged in now. We have to fight it to win it, because to not do so is to lose it. And that's what the whole essence of the book is. And from that point on, I go through various famous and not so famous battles, right up to the Korean War. And in the last chapter, I let my father tell his own story of what it was like to be there on the night of November 27th and 28th, 1950, when suddenly 100,000 Chinese soldiers completely unexpectedly attacked the Marines at the reservoir. It's a stirring finale, I hope, to a series of stirring stories, some heroic, some tragic, all of them very vital to understanding the nature of Western civilization. Look, this is who we are. We can't run from who we are. They can't make us into the new Soviet man. They can't make us into the National Socialist man. They can't make us into the Frankfurt School man. They can't do it. They want to, but we must stop them now.
Now, Michael, the historian in me wants to ask the question, was your father one of the Marines who got called back as a reservist for Korea, having served in World War II prior? There's so many were at the Chosin Reservoir.
Well, no, he was a little too young for World War II. So his baptism by landing at Pusan and then being at the Incheon landing when MacArthur came around the other side of the peninsula, then fighting his way up to Seoul, all the way back up to the reservoir. He later, he was an active duty Marine officer, so he later went to Vietnam as well in the 1960s. So he got two wars, Korea and Vietnam, but Korea was the one I wanted to write about for this particular book.
How does it make you, again, off topic, because I know your feeling for these sorts of things, when you think about the idea of Joe Biden, this character who we know is completely compromised by the Chinese communists? As Steve likes to say, we have the receipts, we have the wire transfers. We know that his son has completely been compromised by the highest levels of their intelligence organizations. We know that because Hunter has said it in his own mouth. and recorded it himself. And what seemed to me, having looked at the hard drive, to be almost like I called it like a crackhead insurance policy. He'd put all the things that he thought could nail others in one place. What does it make you think when you consider all the guys who were in Korea and were in Vietnam, and we know where the weapons and support were coming from the Communist Chinese? It almost hurts me in my gut to think that a man who has betrayed himself for money to that same system, the heirs to those same enemies of ours, how does that make you feel? Like, how do you think your dad would feel if he were still around today?
Well, he's still around, so I could ask him if you'd like.
God bless him. Please forgive me. I'm sorry about that.
No, 94 and kicking down in Florida. Look, we've been fighting the Chinese for 70 years, literally fighting them. The advantage we have over the Chinese is they're not terribly good at fighting. They are, however, terribly good at compromising and suborning and bribing and insinuating and using the protective shield of whatever the term is at the moment, anti-racism or xenophobia or bigotry or whatever the usual collection of opprobrious words the left likes to throw at us. They're very good at that. So what they've done in their attack on the United States, they know they can't beat the United States militarily. It's ridiculous. Furthermore, as I pointed out, in fact, on the Committee on Present-Day China, the Chinese are not a particularly hegemonistic or expansionist country militarily. They tend to lose those fights. They lost them to the Muslims repeatedly. They lost to Tamerlane. The Japanese beat them twice with two regiments of soldiers and a set of steak knives in World War II. I mean, they're actually horrible soldiers and kind of a disgrace to the military profession. But what they are good at is bribery, and we've seen it time and again here with bribing the educators in our institutions and clearly bribing some politicians or sons of some politicians to get ahead. So this is not a conventional war. They intend to fight against us, and we should not be fighting them in a conventional way. We should be fighting them with the will, as if it were a conventional war, to not only win, but to get it over with as quickly as possible.
I think that to doubt them, though, is a little bit of hubris. I think that they can be taught to fight, too, just the same way the Japanese very clearly came out of their period of backwardness and became a world power. I think the Chinese are capable of it. I think when I look at the fight that we have with them, really it has to do with understanding where our power lies, and our power lies just in our fleets. Our power lies in the fields of Iowa, and I'd stop pretending that we can send them the grain as much as they want while having $4 trillion a year defense budgets, all for $150 billion in trade myself. But anyway, Michael, I tell you what, you're just a fountain of knowledge. People don't understand this, along with being a brilliant author. He's been a globetrotting reporter for a long time. So when he speaks on these issues, he's speaking to them with a lot of understanding and many decades of experiences in the trenches analyzing some of this stuff. So, Michael, where can we get this book? Amazon? Is it on the shelves in the stores right now, or?
It certainly is. Yesterday was publication day. We came in at number 217 overall on the Amazon book charts yesterday, which is terrific for a book like this on day one of publication. Thanks to you. Thanks to Mark Stein, who gave me a plug yesterday on Rush Limbaugh's show. Thanks to all the radio interviews I've been doing the last 48 hours and will continue to do. I hope people will get the book and read it, because it's something that needs to be understood right now. And even if you know some of these stories, even if you think you know, say, Custer, the chapter on Custer will tell you things about Custer you never, ever dreamed of, and put that whole fight into a particularly interesting and piquant context, including the fact that Custer hoped to win that battle, go back to New York, and get the Democrat nomination for president. That was the whole point of the Little Bighorn battle. It was a Democrat campaign event that went south.
Well, he wasn't the first politician who sought a uniform first, right? Now, listen, here's a big challenge for our group on the War Room as we break out of here. Michael was at 271 today. I expect that number to improve significantly overnight as we send thousands of these books into the U.S. Postal Service for Christmas presents for young men and women all around America. Michael, thank you so much for being with us, and tell us where we can follow you on Twitter or what have you.
Well, Twitter was nice enough to suspend me, Jack, back last summer, so I still haven't managed to get my Twitter back, but you can find me on Facebook, certainly, and you can also check out our website called thepipeline.org, which is all about climate change hoax and COVID hoax and all kinds of various other hoaxes involving green energy and the future of the West.
All right, thanks so much. See, now Michael's trying to get me banned from YouTube. Here I've been so astute at keeping myself in both of my lanes. All right, guys, we're going to be back in just a few minutes, and hopefully we're going to have John Fredericks with a big update on Georgia. Boom.
God, we rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
If you wanted to take liberty away from Americans, you have to know how to cook a frog. You can't put on a pot of boiling water and then throwing the frog in the water, because his reflexes are so quick that as soon as his feet touch the water, he would hop away and be free. Leonard Reed said the only way to cook a frog is to put on a pot of cold water, put the frog in the water, and heat it up bit by bit. And by the time he realized he was being cooked, it was too late. That's the same thing with Americans. If anybody talked about taking all of our liberties away all at once, we would righteously rebel. But they can talk about taking away our liberties bit by bit. And that is precisely what is happening in our nation.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the War Room. That was the great Walter Williams, inspirational figure in my life. I think an inspirational figure in the lives of a lot of people who grew up in the conservative movement of the 80s, a movement that was really rejecting the kind of play along, get along Rockefeller Republicanism and trying to find core values and core beliefs. And Walter Williams was a great free marketeer, great American. He will be sorely missed. His voice would be fabulous for all of us to have in the midst of this epic struggle that we're having right now, mainly because of the strength of his moral character. And that's the kind of voices that we need in this country today. I'm also proud to say that Walter Williams is a native of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I guess I can call myself a native of that area as well. And such a great guy, and God bless him. Godspeed. He's in great hands now, I know, and many blessings to his family. But we here in the War Room definitely want to give out a shout out to Walter Williams. You will be missed by your countrymen, sir. John Fredericks, are you with us? Okay, we're missing John Fredericks. Anyway, Greg, you and I watched some of that stuff today down in Georgia. I know that it seems sort of short sometimes on the actual affidavits and things like that. I think it got clumsy when they started bringing people up. But while I was watching it, someone pointed out there is a list, I'll post it on my Twitter feed, of hundreds of affidavits that you can go read for yourself that are quite shocking. But what was your general impression?
So in watching it, you could just tell the enthusiasm and patriotism that was in the crowd, that permeated through the screen in the whole process of it was a speech and prayer event as well. But then something that really stood out to me was the passion that Lynn Wood was speaking with, and then contrasted with Sidney Powell's more subdued attitude of the big picture of what's going on and the mechanics of what's going to be happening down in Georgia. But really that passion and patriotism stood out to me.
Well, and also I think the call to action, asking everybody to hold their ground. Obviously, we have some listeners to the War Room down there because we've been saying that for some time. And I got to say this so many times, people. I know people are disheartened, right? But, every battle is won at the end, not in the beginning, not in the middle. It's won when it's over. And this has a process. Our founders gave us a constitution. It's to follow the process. Now, the Constitution is only as good as the men who took an oath to defend it, correct, right? And this is one of the reasons why I think Lynn Wood is saying you need to get down to the State House in Atlanta. You need to surround it, not with violence, but with love and nonviolence, and let them know that you want to be heard. I mean, one of the things that I think is so interesting as you're watching these people get courage and come together, and I saw this in the hearings in Michigan yesterday, it's such a diverse crowd. And yes, they're impassioned, but you see this kind of invisible bond being created by all these people who are looking across the room saying, enough. And a brown face is seeing a white face, and a whatever, blue hair is seeing gray hair. And everybody is deciding, hey, we're Americans, and the system has to start working for Americans.
Yeah, and one of the stars today was definitely Vernon Jones. We played one of his clips there, but he was somebody that really has had the president's back and is in this fight going forward as we get closer to the Electoral College date of December 14th.
I was in disagreement with Lynn Wood saying that nobody should show up for the election. I do think that the January 5th election, they could do it on paper ballots. There's nothing from keeping them from being able to print those. But I'm with Vernon Jones. I think we need to show up. Now is not the time to walk home with your weapons. In fact, we have a historical parallel. After the first 1 year enlistment with everybody in Washington's army, everyone was like, hey, I think I'm going to head home. And it took a lot to convince some of these guys to stay on through the next winter, and stay on they did. And hey, that's just what and some of these representatives just need to look back in their own history and find some steel in their spines, because it's somewhere in their DNA. They didn't get raised up in this country by sheep,
Yeah, and specifically when we talk about action and the call to actions here, that's what Vernon Jones did today to his fellow representatives in putting the marker down for the governor to call a special session, which is absolutely vital in order to get the legislature back in there to fill out these mechanics going forward. And that was something that was an extreme marker for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be fixed. It's actually embarrassing. I know that I speak a lot about this data group that I work with in Switzerland that we've been working with. And one of the embarrassing things is just not even being able to get the data sets. It's as if this entire system is rigged so that you cannot easily look through it. And we've got around this country some of the best minds looking at this stuff, and we've had many of them as guests on our show, but the constant refrain is, how do we get our hands on the data? And if you can't get your hands on the data, how do we know that any of our elections are functioning properly? And I think one of the things that struck out that Sydney said today, and for anyone who thinks I don't support Lynn Wood, I support the man 1,000%. It's just the nuance on it. We're both going to get to the same place. But one of the things that Sydney said that I thought was so important, and we've found it in our looking at the data, is that the same finesse, the same grift that we see as being changing the outcome in, say, Fulton County, Georgia, or in Milwaukee, or in Pittsburgh, or in Philadelphia, the same grift was occurring even in counties that we didn't necessarily see a change in outcome. But it was happening in many, many places around the country, and certainly seemingly in almost every place where Dominion was. So I'll post on my Twitter feed a link so you can see Sydney's filings and Lynn Wood's filings down in Georgia. They're fascinating reading for everyone. We're glad to say that we've got the great John Fredericks online right now, patriot down in Georgia. And let me tell you what, when John Fredericks starts coming down the hallway, you're going to get out of his way, because he's a big man and he's got a big heart and he loves his country. John, what's it like down there in Georgia?
Well, Jack, thanks for having me on War Room here. I just got back, actually just got to downtown Atlanta, where there's a rogue hearing tomorrow by the Senate Government Oversight Committee on the shenanigans that have gone on in the election. But I got to tell you, this rally, and this is really what it was. This was not a press conference. This was a rally led by Lin Wood and Sidney Powell, and to some extent Vernon Jones. There were 3,000 people, Jack, that showed up in the middle of the afternoon in Alpharetta, Georgia, and it was absolutely bedlam. Lin Wood calling for an extension of the movement, calling for an absolute rejection of Governor Kemp and Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State, and Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan, demanding a special session. The crowd, when they mentioned Raffensperger or Kemp, the crowd chanted, "Lock 'em up." I mean, it was really unbelievable. Lin Wood said that this is the new Jericho. He suggested that everybody surround the mansion, the governor's mansion, blow horns in their car all day tomorrow in order to get the governor to come out of hiding and to call a special session. But there was absolute bedlam there. They didn't really present any new evidence, although Sidney Powell did say that she has evidence that fraudulent ballots were printed in Mexico and came across the border, thousands and thousands of them. She says evidence on that. She also has evidence on voter fraud of all kinds. What she said in her speech was that this fraud in the country, she said, was so vast, it covered mail-in ballots, Dominion voting machines, and she went back again to the software. She said that there was no question that they had the evidence that the algorithms, the software in these machines were adjusted so that Trump voters were only counted 1% and Biden was overcounted. She said that's the only way you could account for these tremendous spikes in voting machine results where Biden was getting 95, 98% of tens of thousands of ballots. Also, they said they had evidence and affidavits of people who saw multiple mail ballots for Joe Biden fed in the machine on multiple times. So let's say they had 1,000 ballots for Biden, they fed him in the machine 3 times. That turned into 3,000 votes. She inferred that that was part of why in Pennsylvania you had 1.8 million ballots mailed out, 2.5 million back. That, and she said some ballots were just fake. That goes back to Georgia where they've got this 30,000 pristine ballots, pristine meaning only check Biden, all the circles the same, and the paper not folded. Unless somebody shows me what the magic trick involved in mailing a ballot that you can't fold, I've never seen it done. Maybe Kreskin can do it. I don't think it can get done 30,000 times. But let me tell you, Jack, the other big thing that came out of this was incredible. Okay? You had 3 speakers there, Vernon Jones, Lin Wood, and Sidney Powell. Lin Wood and Vernon Jones implored Republicans not to come out and vote in January 5th election runoff. They said it's going to be another fraud. You're going to get gamed again. They don't care about you. They just want your vote. And then he said, let me ask you a question. We got 3,000 people here. Where's David Perdue? Where's Kelly Loeffler? They're not here. They never contacted us. They don't care about you. These are fighting words. Vernon Jones, one of the 3 speakers, came out and implored the audience to vote for Loeffler and Perdue in the runoff. So even the 3 speakers were not in agreement about what to do. Lin Wood's basic message was that they expect you to tuck tail and run away. One of the speakers said, you know what? They did this fraud, and they think we're still the party of Mitt Romney. That's gone. We're Trump's party now. We're fighting back. We're not going to take it. I was shocked at this rally. I thought it was going to be a press conference like they did at the White House. They'd share a few nuggets with us. Instead, you got a fired-up crowd of 3,000 people,
hey, John,
jumping, hooting, and hollering.
Hold that thought. We want to carry you over into the next segment because we want to hear more about this. But I agree. Lin Wood was like a preacher. I can tell you, he's no lukewarm Christian, and he's no lukewarm political ideologue either. Power man. All right, guys, back in just 2 minutes.
Spread the word all through Hong Kong. We will fight till they're all gone. We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP. They have all lied for too long. We will end what they do wrong.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room. It's Jack Maxey here, sitting in the captain's seat. I'm here with two wingmen now. We brought Vish in on the team for the last segment, and we've got Greg Mans. We've still got John Fredericks on the phone. And I want to follow up. John, you were talking about how obviously Sydney was clearly the had a legal opinion. She was there as the strong, thoughtful, legal mind. Lynn Wood, I thought, was very much a passionate legal personality as well, but he seemed to bring a whole new spiritual level of battle into this, which I much admired. But I have to say, I sort of fell on the side of let's still try to get these people elected. Now, granted, it is shameful that they are not out there. It's shameful that the RNC and other groups are not out there more aggressively fighting to the end with their president. Not exactly a group of people I'd like to go into battle with in the future, knowing how they reacted this time. But what are your thoughts on whether or not people should show up or whether they should go vote? I think let's get them out there to vote, but combine it with people standing out there with petitions to have to pull back the governor and Raffensperger, Kemp and Raffensperger, get them recalled. What are your thoughts?
Well, of course people need to vote so we can save the republic, there's no question. But quite frankly, Jack, my opinion here is irrelevant. What is really germane to this is what the voters are saying and what they're feeling and what they're going to do. And that's really what this discussion should be about. I don't think the Republicans here in this state get it. Certainly, the three blind mice don't get it. Kemp, Duncan, and Raffensperger. I don't think Perdue gets it. I don't think Kelly Loeffler gets it. Let me just read you a couple of the quotes, okay? This is from Sidney Powell, who's not a bomb thrower, right? She says, don't vote again until they can assure you that your vote is counted and secure. Don't feed in to their fraud. This is a direct quote today, a month before the runoff. Let me tell you something else that was said. Lynn Wood said, again, where's Perdue? Where's Loeffler? But let me tell you what else he said today that got people cheering. He's like, where's Ronald Romney? Where's the RNC? They keep asking you for money. You give them money, and just like you said, Jack, in the time of trouble, they're nowhere to be found, not a single one of them. Let me tell you what else Lynn Wood said that Loeffler and the consultants down there, they don't get it. He said, Perdue and Loeffler, he said, make them earn your vote. Make them demand a special session. Make them demand Kemp do something. Make them do something. Earn your vote on January 5th.
John,
they're taking you for granted.
This should be the mantra for the entire Republican Party going forward. I'm just not sure it's worth, like, in a moment of spite to burn down the Senate.
You can't change it.
I think though that what we could do is
it.
we could change the way that they vote on the 5th. I mean, there's no reason we can't print up 3 million ballots.
But
so
they're not going to do that. No one is going to do. The problem is the Georgia Republican establishment is ineffective. They're not showing any leadership. They don't understand the anger that's fomented. And if they want to win this election, if they want to win, Perdue and Loeffler have to get involved in this situation. They
100%.
have to demand a special session. All they want to do, Jack, is see them fight for them.
Yes.
They just
Yes.
want them.
Yes.
They just want somebody fighting for them,
Yes,
Jack.
yes. Thank you for bringing me back to earth, John. You're right. That's all that people want to see is that you are willing to fight. Okay, John, listen, thank you so much for always being that guy who's in the fight. I'm going to hand it over to Vish Burra, who's got a little news about what's going on up in New York City. Here you go, Vish.
Yeah, so we mentioned earlier. I mentioned earlier in the show, earlier in today's morning show, that we have our gala. Steve spoke at it last year. This year we have Matt Gaetz and James O'Keefe, and we've been getting a lot of grief from a bunch of forces all throughout New York City and the country to try to get this gala shut down. So I thought I'd bring in my buddy and the president of the New York Young Republicans Club, Gavin Wax, to sort of talk us through that. So Gavin, go ahead, take it away.
Thank you, Vish. Thanks for having me. Great vice president. I'm glad we have this synergy with War Room. But yeah, it's been a crazy 24 hours up here in New York. We have the entire Democrat establishment in a tizzy that a bunch of Republicans would choose to peacefully gather and, express our concerns over the death of George Floyd and many other issues. And, it's also a religious gathering. I mean, that's partly a joke, but whatever you have to do to hold an event these days, we're trying to do that. But we've had city council members, we've had state senators, we've had pretty much all of Cuomo's press office haranguing us on Twitter and trying to find out where the venue is so they can sick their Antifa dogs on us. So it's been a rough 24 hours, but we're holding the line, we're staying strong, and we're pushing back.
Yeah, who are some of these clowns from Cuomo's office that are giving us trouble here?
We have a few of the usual goons. I mean, just to name a few, we got Rich Azopardi, Jack Stern, who I refer to as Neckbeard or Pudgy Neckbeard. I think he likes that a lot. We also have Jake Adler. We have Abigail Barker. I mean, these are all just these amateurs that work for their amateur governor, Governor Cuomo. We put out a press statement after he attacked our gala, calling him an amateur and him being, King Nipple Rings, Cuomo. And his whole staff is now up in arms about that. And, a lot of elected officials. We have the Daily Beast. We have Gothamist. We even have the Gay City News. The Gay City News compared us to a bunch of closeted gays in the 1950s, which would seem to imply that Republicans or conservatives are a persecuted minority group in New York City, if I'm understanding the analogy that the Gay City News is posting on their website. So we're getting it from all angles, but we're not giving up. We're holding strong. We're going to have a great gala with a lot of people and some great speakers.
Excellent. Yeah, we're going to have a blast tomorrow, so I can't wait to see you there. Really have good time. Maxie, Mans, I wish you guys could join us.
Yeah, here we have it. This is what happens. You guys have a big gala, and Vish Burra leaves us in the lurch. But you know what? We can handle it. Vish is up there trying to convert the state of New York to some sort of conservative point of view. That's a big job. But Vish can handle it. I'm glad you guys are on it. Listen, guys, big shout out to the whole audience, Mr. Williams and his family. And we're in this fight. It's not going to end here. Rely on the Constitution. Look to your right. Look to your left. Don't leave each other behind. Let's get on it. All right? We'll see you tomorrow morning. Thanks so much for sticking with us and sticking with America, because it's worth it.